Good evening. How are you? Well, I'm doing a sit and talk because I had so much business with the Soil and Water Board. I'm a member, an elected member of it, that I couldn't get out while it was still daylight. So I'm here now. I have several thoughts about things. One is about why anybody is obedient to Trump. The other is what kind of politics is he doing when he runs down a locality and still expects them to vote for him or to follow his crazy logic. Um, Also, we have the situation in which we have Biden speaking out about the state of our public discourse when Trump is running down the efforts to save people from the recent natural disasters involving two successive hurricanes. And finally, I have some comments based on the passing of a sensational and important American that I had a chance to know and that we all know in a certain way. But let me start off with obedience. Stanley Milgram, Milgram, was a sensational social student. He was fascinated by what makes people obedient. What takes a normally ethical person to do something horrible? And he was thinking, of course, about what happened in Germany and what Hitler had done and why people would follow orders so obediently that would hurt, perhaps, and kill others that they didn't even know, that they had no gripe with except the fact that they were Jewish, for example. Or that they disagreed with the politics of Hitler. And you would ask today, who wouldn't? But what would you do? How obedient would you be? You might find that you'd be stronger because I think there are characteristics that favor obedience. But what was Milgram doing? Milgram created a study in which there were two people involved. Um, I will use words that I think more easily identify them. One is the quote, victim or student. The other is the teacher or perpetrator. And then there's another one who's not really officially identified, who's in the room and who's overseeing what happens from the perspective of the teacher, if you will. And what exactly is the program? The program is, I say I'm the teacher, I read to you a number of pairs of names, dog, cat, and then I pick out one of them and I say dog, so you're supposed to say to me cat. And if you don't, you're punished. And how are you punished? You're punished with a shock of electricity. And the person who causes that shock to go to you is the person who's the teacher. And when you get more or several wrong, the shock increases. And then in almost every case, it reaches a point where the person on the other side, you hear them screaming, no, stop, I can't do this, I didn't agree to it, let me out of here. And then the person who's the teacher either increases it or says, I can't do this, I have to stop, I can't do this. And they say, no, you have to do it, it's part of the thing, it's required, you have to do it. And then they do it in almost every single case. Now, let me first of all ease your concern. The person who is being tortured and hurt by these shocks is acting. He can't be seen by the teacher. And the real examination is, if you take seemingly ordinary ethical people, will they obey an instruction to hurt someone else? And the answer is a resounding yes, a screaming yes. And yes, there were several instances in which people said, I won't do it. One was an electrician who said, I know about shocks, I'm not going to do it. And the person on the other side is screaming. And again, that's acting, it's not real. So what do we learn from this? Well, I don't think Milgram ever was able to derive any understanding beside the fact that it happened. Now, that in itself is a tremendous statement. It says that seemingly ethical people, seemingly normal people, would do something hateful to another person they don't know, based on the instructions of another person who is new to them within minutes of telling them to do that. Now, is that what Germany was about? Perhaps. We read from various texts, that the kind of person who belongs to a cult is kind of an empty person and is looking for someone to tell them what to do and who to be and so forth. That could be part of it. They are more interested in the emotional reaction. I don't like Jews. I don't like Christians. Whatever it is. I don't like Democrats. But to such a point as that I wish ill on them and so forth. So, but would they take the next step and hurt them? Would they do something terrible to them? And there's evidence that that's the case. And Trump understands that when he incites people to riot, when he talks about things that are happening to him, suggesting, we shouldn't put up with this stuff. And so you have to, is it 100% effective? Maybe not. But it is an aspect of our modern debate, that people are obeying things that you wouldn't think they normally would, which speaks to what our culture has become and how it's operating, which is poorly. Now, in our own camp, in the Democratic camp, we have people we thought are our friends who are whining and compromising, it seems to me, what's going on in the election. And head of the list is Mr. Carville, who was and remains an important figure in the political party, except he's doing something that this doesn't fit. He may have been pure blue in the past, but he seems to want to muck around with the strategies, and he wants to do it in a very public way. He's not going to these people and talking, which makes me think he's not at the big table, and or he's telling this to people and they're not listening. So he's arguing his case to the public at the risk of hurting the candidates. Now, you may remember back when they sort of did this public pressure dance on Biden. He was part of that. And now he's saying, well, I don't know if Kamala's doing the right thing and maybe she'd do this. And I'm scared to death. And say, whoa, stop it. We don't need this. You may want to be at the big table, and this argues against you being at the big table. So he should stop whining and take a powder, because what he's doing isn't helpful politically. On some level, he must know that. And his personal ambition is not a basis or a justification for what he's doing. Now let's turn to Trump and his political skill. He went and he told the Democratic, he told the Democrats and others in Detroit that, it's a new kind of politics. He's there in Detroit and he's attacking Detroit. He says that the whole country would end up like Detroit if Kamala Harris is elected. Whoa. So you're telling Detroit that if the rest of the nation is like you, that's a loss? That's an argument. It's a very strange argument, insulting someone that you hope to work with you and so forth. And the local representative, Shri Thanadar, said, why don't you just keep Detroit and our people out of your mouth? And that seems to me like we know he won't do it, but we do appreciate the comment because it's said and heard by others. Now, the Michigan State Attorney General said, this guy is calling us ugly and then asking us out on a date. So I don't think it's a strategy that works. It is an important state for the election, and I think he's compromised his ability to affect it favorably by this kind of an argument. We'll see, and there'll be poll data beforehand, but the time is getting short, and so ultimately it's going to be us on the ground. Now, Biden also wasn't quiet today because, concerned as he was about our environmental challenges, 2 hurricanes back-to-back coming through Florida, and the second one, it appears, if I saw the correct direction of the hurricane, it looks like it's going to cut across Florida and go out into the ocean, so it's not going to turn north on land and affect the Carolinas or Georgia or points northeast, straight up and northwest. So that's where we are with that. But the reporters asked Biden when he was making his report on what's going on and what he's doing to save these people, is he said about Trump, get a life, man, help these people. What could be more basic than to ask somebody to do that? And how does a person expect to be elected? Basically running down solutions to the depravity of a natural disaster? It's just astonishing to me that anybody could run for office and say those things. And it's because I don't believe that dystopic themes are in the nature of political advance and progress. I think they are in the nature of threats and fear to get us so insecure about our current government that we just throw a Hail Mary pass and hope that this guy Trump is going to do better than that. And then finally, something happened today that we all knew it was going to come along sometime. And it was that Ethel Kennedy at 96 died of a stroke that she had last week. Now, Ethel Kennedy is the matriarch of a large family of outstanding public servants, with reservations about one visible in her husband's name these days. And she herself was such a force for social justice and equality and for political change. And I know this firsthand because I worked on Ted's campaign for the presidency in the primaries in New York in 1980, a long time ago. And in 1984, I ran for Congress myself. And I'd gotten to know Kathleen Kennedy Townsend, who was one of Ethel's daughters. And we talked about various things. And at one point I said to her, I don't want to be a burden. If this is out of line, just let me know. And I said, would it be possible for me to have a campaign function, fundraiser, at Hickory Hill, their home in McLean? And she said, well, let me think about it. So she talked to Ethel, and Ethel agreed. And we had several conversations. And then the evening that I spoke, when everybody had left, we sat there alone and we talked about it. And we talked about the night that her husband died, was killed. And she said the house was filled with people. And she told me how she was moved by her husband, who came home one evening after a conversation with the president, with JFK, during the missile crisis. And there was a lot of criticism about what JFK was doing or might do and so forth. And he had said, JFK had said, bullfight critics row by row crowd the enormous plaza full, but there's only one who knows, and that's the man who fights the bull. So Bobby Kennedy wrote that down, and he put it in a frame, in a glass, over their marital bed. When everybody had left the night when they were all there, sort of an Irish wake, if you will, although it was a mixture of a whole variety of people who were close to the family, she went up to their bedroom, and I guess coats and so forth had been put on the bed, and somebody took that plaque away. So she told me about that, and I was thinking, how do you make up something like that? Because that was what she singled out of that evening. It was almost like it was a final affront to the gesture of opening your house and then somebody taking a memento from your house, not knowing what it meant to the surviving matron, Ethel. And so what I did was I researched with several Kennedy aides whether this happened and what the quote would be. And we went to the Kennedy Library, and I created a small plaque, and I went and I presented it to her. In the years after that, certainly in the 80s, I was invited to a variety of things, and I went to them and so forth. And she was always a gracious lady. And so I am just one of the many stories of people that were helped by Ethel and the family, try to advance in politics, try to learn things, try to make a difference. In fact, if there's any slogan that sums up my experience of the Kennedy, is that the notion that one man can make a difference. We all believe that, I think, from my generation that got to know JFK, and he became an inspiration to others to want to do public service and to do it the best way one could. And Ethel was certainly a beacon for that kind of a practice in America, in her own family and elsewhere. And all the awards and things she attended to and the different groups she was with, in the company of her now adult daughters, who themselves were quite savvy in ways of the politics of this nation. So I remember her with great sadness that she's passed, but I enjoy the gift she gave in her life who she was when relaxed and who she was when she was trying to make a difference herself. So that's it for this evening. Talk to you tomorrow. Bye-bye.